All right, very good. Okay, so now I understand you have been working on a Christian identity or Christian Israel version of the Lord's Prayer. Why don't you go through that with us?
Well, of course, I don't know how many people know the truth, and if you know these things, just please bear with me. We want to put out this new version of the whole thing of the Lord's Prayer because the word Lord has been a focal point of this whole issue, beside the fact that Yeshua was teaching. This actually is the only prayer Yeshua ever taught to his children or the disciples.
Okay.
So it's a very wonderful thing, and there isn't a Christian in the world who doesn't know this prayer. In fact, I think every language has been translated into, and it's a wonderful, true prayer containing just about everything you're supposed to pray about.
Okay.
So we find this first time in the Bible in Matthew 6, verse 9 through 13, and also it's almost word to word repeatedly published in Luke 11, 2 through 4.
Okay.
Both chapters also find the unfortunate problems with the translations, which says, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." So like some other parts of the Bible, it has translational errors because the Jews give us the Bible, as they call it.
Right.
And they were doing their best to confuse us or keep us in the dark and create a big confusion. So this, I hope, will help to clarify a lot of things about this prayer. Everybody who recites this prayer includes the flaws in it, the mistaken or the mistranslations, and that's very unfortunate. So this is a hope I have that we will be able to clarify these things.
Okay. Yeah.
Since this mistake is practiced universally, we feel obligated to call it to your attention, and our God never led anybody in temptation. You have to understand that as the number one issue.
Right.
Matthew 26:42 says, "Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation."
Right.
How about James 1:13? It says, "Let no man say when he's tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil. Neither tempted he any man."
Mm-hmm.
So let this be memorized.
Right.
The second fundamental mistake can be found in the prayer, which cannot be overlooked or ignored. It is true that all of us are sinners and admonished to have forgive everybody who is owe us anything or whatever. It is also true that we are not told to forgive the Christ haters.
Right.
So, in fact, that David, the psalmist, was favored by Christ Yeshua because he said in Psalms 139:21, listen to this, "Do not I hate him, O Yahweh, that hate thee?
Right.
Am I not grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies." So Yeshua blessed David, saying, "I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart."
Yes.
So you can't say that the hate is wrong, because you must hate evil,
yes,
and
absolutely.
you must love the truth.
Yeah, well, isn't it an error of modern, so-called Judeo-Christianity, that they believe that anybody can be converted, and that you must have to love the devil himself.
Yeah.
How does
Forgive
the devil
everybody. Love everybody. Peace, love, all these things. So I would like to show you the mistranslations and the corrections at the same time, so that you will understand where the problems are in this prayer.
Okay, yes. And we covered the lead us not. The word should not be lead.
We have 5 actual mistranslations in this beautiful prayer.
Okay.
And because we know Yahweh or Yeshua did never make a mistake,
right.
So the problem is not the prayer itself, it's the people who translated it wrong.
Sure.
So listen to this. The Lord's Prayer should be such as follow. Our Father, who art in heaven. Now the translation in the KJV, the King James Version, is our Father who art in heaven.
Well,
hallowed be thy name, Yahweh.
Okay.
You have to add the word, the name Yahweh, because otherwise thy name means nothing without the name mentioned.
Right. Okay.
So continue going, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The KJV says in earth.
Okay.
Nobody's inside the earth.
Right. It's
crazy. So it's a mistranslation.
Preposition there.
Continuing,
yes. Okay.
give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those brethren who trespass against us. I urge you to understand this and memorize it, because we're not supposed to forgive every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Right.
So, especially the Antichrist.
Right. Well, we don't have any. We're not in a position to forgive others anyway. We can pray for them, and we can, do an imprecatory prayer, or
I get to this in a minute.
Okay. All right.
And finishing up, and let us not enter into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. So this is broken up now with the messages, and like I said, who is in instead of which on the first line.
Okay.
Kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those brethren who trespass against us. And let us not enter into temptation, instead of lead us not into temptation, because Yahweh never led anyone into temptation.
Yes.
That's ridiculous, and people actually don't recognize these things because they rattle off prayers.
Yes.
But you have to, when you pray, not just the Lord's Prayer, but you have to also pray it. Whatever you pray to God is to Yahweh, is that you are specific. Be specific in your prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Think every word you say. It has to come out of the mouth of God.
That's right.
And it's you have to effectual prayer, with saying all those words. Think them as you think, as you hear yourself praying. So let this be a very important change in our prayer habits.
Right.
And when you're in group prayers, let's say that you're in a church and give a sermon or something, and you will have 50 or 100 people or more follow you in your prayer, and they trying to go following you. So when you say these right things and they never heard about these changes we did, they stumble all over it, and there's a big confusion in the background.
Right.
But ignore them and go on and continue to say it, because the correct prayer is the main issue.
Right.
And if they don't understand it, they will as they learn in time. And I urge them that they will follow this thing and come up with it.
Yes.
So this is about the Lord's Prayer. I hate to say that Lord there, because Lord actually is we don't say it because Lord was also Satan's name.
Yes,
and
Baal.
Don't ever forget that the translators knocked out and took out the word Yahweh from the Bible 7,738 times.
Right. And replaced it with Lord.
Because they took the word Yahweh out is because they hate to hear it.
That's right.
And they don't want you to know it, so they skip over it without mentioning the word Yahweh.
That's right. And that is a Jewish tradition. It's not
tradition,
Israelite tradition. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I have a couple of comments and questions here, because You mentioned, the David's prayer, and that he has a righteous hatred against Yahweh's enemies, and of course, in modern
Psalms 139,
right, and in modern Judeo-Christianity, they absolutely ignore the fact that Yahweh has enemies.
Yeah,
and that Yahshua has enemies, and when he comes back, he's going to kick butt. Okay,
yeah,
his enemies' butt. That's what he's going to do. It's like, why don't these preachers teach this? Because they're leading the Christian sheeple down a false road of security, when everybody who denies the will of Yahweh is liable for this punishment, aren't they?
absolutely.
Yes. So yes.
Go ahead.
So we have to understand that Yahweh has enemies, and those enemies.
And because he had enemies, we have enemies.
That's right.
Because they're the same people who hate us.
Exactly. And the New Testament confirms over and over again that Yahweh's enemies, there's certain of his enemies, and namely the Jews, who absolutely refuse to bow to the will of Yahweh, and they and their father Satan, which Jesus Christ says in John 8:33 through 44, that their father is Satan, the devil, and they do his will. So that Christians who try to convert Jews, number one, the Jews don't want them don't want to be converted. And number two, you're preaching to the devil.
They stop praying the Lord's Prayer even in churches now.
Really?
Because they hate the prayer, because it means, obviously, especially the doxology, when you finish praying, you say in the Father and the Son names,
Yes.
And it says that lead us, for thine is the kingdom,
right,
and the power, and the glory forever. They don't want to give up these things.
Yeah, right.
And they don't want to be mentioned kingdoms and the glory of Yahweh.
Right. They
So
don't teach the kingdom.
They
That's
stop
right.
using it and stop praying it.
Yes, they teach the gospel of personal salvation, not the gospel of the kingdom. Yes.
Listen, I went into a church here in local church. It's a beautiful one, and it's a secluded society here. And I went by and I found a preacher standing out there, the pastor, and I thought, I'm going to have to find out what they teach.
Yes.
And I said, well, Pastor, what do you teach here? He said, the salvation, this, and this and that. And I said, well, you teach false. Do you teach salvation of the nation, the personal salvation of each individuals who are called Christians? Oh, yes. And I said, well, if you teach personal salvation, do you preach national salvation as well? She said, oh, no, we don't touch that. Get out of my church. And boy, he pushed me out. On the front door. So can you imagine pastoring a beautiful church and not teach the biblical scriptures,
right?
And messages about the prayers and about the national salvation? This is why we have to suffer, because until we refuse to talk about the whole truth and every word God taught us, then we will have to keep enduring the punishments for it. And we will be called on the carpet, let me tell you something. Yes. I don't want to be in their shoes.
Yes. Well, there's a saying here in America, it's probably worldwide, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the churches are not teaching the whole truth. And then they're making up scripture, so they violate nothing but the truth too. So we have churches that are engaged in short-selling the Holy Scriptures, especially because they don't teach the national salvation message, the message of the kingdom.
Right.
Yeah, and they're doing the Christian world a tremendous disservice by not teaching national salvation. Okay, and then in the Lord's Prayer here, it says, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it says, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, okay? And to me, that means the law. That we're.
What?
Go ahead.
The national issue is is what we are trying to emphasize here.
Yes.
Now, if you look at what is a nation, when you have a group of people, let's say 5, 10 people get together, that's a little group. Then you grow and you become a larger group, become probably a society or a community. Then you become a state. And then you put all these Christians together,